Welcome to Slayer the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. And welcome to another edition of Sabbath Sunday. This is where Darren and I get together with you on Sunday to talk all things Black Sabbath. And for this episode today, we're going to be talking about the new remix of Dio's Holy Diver. It just came out like about a week ago or so from the making of this video. And me and Darren have lived with it here for a little while. Now we both don't have the full set yet. I've been listening to the remix on streaming. I haven't decided what I want to do. You can check out, I made a video about how I'm at a crossroads trying to decide what I want to do with this. If I want to buy the vinyl or the CD box, because the vinyl is just a remix of the album, plus the Evil Eyes bonus is tacked onto there. The CD box comes with a remastered version of the CD, a remix of the CD, a live show, and a disc of outtakes. Also for reference, you'll hear us referring to remix and remaster. I will leave a link in the video in the description to a video that I made in the past describing the difference between a remix and a remaster, because people often confuse these two things. To summarize, a remix, they're actually going into the original tracks, changing levels, re-EQing specific instruments and things like that, whereas a remaster is just a general adding treble or bass to the whole mix in general. So, okay, so Darren, you've had the remix for a little bit here. You were able to give it a few listens. What are your thoughts?
I like it. We did an episode of Holy Diver on our Black Sabbath Into the Void podcast, and we both agree that we love the album. It's a great album. There are some shortcomings with the original mix and master that we noted. Primarily, it sounded a little thin. Guitars were mostly placed in a pretty polite place in the mix. The bass was audible, but there wasn't a lot of clarity or articulation. And I think overall, the mix of the original Holy Diver was completely dominated by drums and vocals, which isn't a bad thing. But it's a little curious in the way that it sounded. Now, I mean, when I was 14, when I bought the album, it didn't jump out at me. So it's nothing that's like utterly and totally flawed. But in referencing other things that were coming out at the same time, you can tell that there is a bit of a strange way that the album was produced. And it could have been due to Dio's budget. He produced it himself, I believe. And so, I mean, I guess he was relying mostly on his experience in the studio. And also, I'm going to guess, the fact that it was his solo album, so he was the center of attention. He had his buddy Vinny with him, so it was him and Vinny and these other guys, and maybe that played into it a little bit. But I mean, overall, it didn't diminish anything from the album, the songs, and whatnot. But to get to the point, so here we are in 2022, and 19 years later, we have a new mix of an album that we've all grown to accept the way that it is, for better, for worse. So it's kind of taking a chance, and I'm not sure whose idea it was to do this. I'm guessing Wendy Dio. It's timely in that it comes at Dio's 80th birthday. So for that, I guess I can understand why it would have some significance at this point, 19 years later. 80 years old is a pretty big milestone, even though he didn't live to see it. But celebrating or acknowledging his 80th birthday is a good enough reason, I suppose. But where this album, and I held it up a little while ago, but I'll hold it up again. The album cover is different. The artwork is different. Same color scheme. I don't know if you can see, but the priest is in sort of a different position. Murray, the demonic mascot, is a little bit different. I suspect it's a different painting altogether. Probably a different artist altogether, I should say.
I think so. You think that was? I haven't looked at it closely enough. I just thought, from casual looking at it, that maybe that was just like an alternate, same artist, just maybe a different one cover that they didn't use, in other words, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the original, you could see brush strokes. This looks like it's more either computer generated or airbrushed.
Okay, interesting.
But
Yeah.
the colors are pretty much similar. But where this differs, and you know, I mean, I don't mind remixes. I don't get too possessive over records. I feel like after a certain point, if somebody wants to try to go in and remix it, make it sound a little different, I'm game. You know, I don't mind hearing it. I mean, it's not going to replace the original. The original is always going to be there. You can always go back and listen to it. If you don't like the new version, the new mix, I mean, you can listen to it, decide you don't like it, and toss it aside and never listen to it again. If you do like it, well, then it's kind of an extra thing that you have there for reference. With this, I like it enough. I think some of the things have been corrected. I think the guitar in this new mix sounds like it's a little bit more prominent and sounds like where it should have been in the mix all along. So appreciate that. Bass is a little louder. The bass presence is more noticeable. There's not a lot of articulation, so you can't really hear exactly what Jimmy's doing, but you do hear more bass in the mix, which is cool. Vinny's drums, and I don't know if it's just by adjusting the levels of the bass and guitar, but Vinny's drums now seem to be more at a normal place in the mix, and of course Dio's vocals are still over top, as they should be. A noticeable thing, for better for worse, again, is the fact that all of these songs have a count in. And I'm not sure if it's, I can recognize Jimmy's voice at one point. Other times it's a stick count with Vinny, but it's pretty cool to hear the voice counting in the song. And it's a little different, you know, it's a lot different from the original album, which is more polished and the songs start after the 4 count. Also the endings, there's actually worked out most of the songs, or all the songs that were faded out on the original now have natural endings, and you could tell that the band actually worked out endings to songs that ended up becoming fade outs. And
yeah, exactly. Which usually it's the opposite. Usually when you have a fade out, the band is just sort of jamming and then they just sort of randomly stop. But here they had actual endings, and they must have at some point in the original, you know, 1983 version decided that they were going to fade out. And I never really noticed how many songs fade out on this disc until, like you're talking about now, they added the endings to them, and the majority of songs on Holy Diver fade out.
Yeah. So the mix is an improvement, I guess you could say. Of course, that's always a subjective call. It is an improvement sonically, but I feel like maybe some of the energy has been taken away. It's all sort of, it's warmer. It feels warmer. It feels more comfortable. There was more of a stark, slightly cold quality to the original mix, and I miss that. It kind of added in a little bit of energy and a little bit of spontaneity, I guess, from my perspective, from my listening perspective, and that worked. This is probably a corrected mix, and you know, sonically it is technically an improvement, but again, it's like you have to get past the fact that we've been listening to it for 19 years and hearing it on, you know, the radio, pulling it out on vinyl, listening to it. I've really grown accustomed to it. I'm sure most people have really grown accustomed to the way that it sounded all these years. So it's hard to adjust to it. But it's cool, you know, as an extra thing to have to celebrate the album Holy Diver. It's cool. It doesn't hurt anything. Evil Eyes, the bonus on the vinyl, is pretty cool. It's not as produced. It's obviously a different performance. It's obviously a different recording than what later appeared on Last in Line, and it sounds a little bit more raw. Same song structure. The production quality is a little different, and it's not better. It's not worse. It's just different. Evil Eyes, just different, and you know, from a collector's standpoint, it's cool to have, but could live without it. So.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. We talked about it on the podcast. I always felt the original was a little overly bright, lacking in bass, the frequency, not necessarily bass, the instrument. I'm talking about the original 1983, which, by the way, is 40 years ago, right? 39 years ago. It's hard to believe.
Wow. Yeah, you're right.
You were saying 19.
19. Wow.
It's 39, so it's
what
been
year are you in?
Because
I'm back. You might be in 2022. I'm still in the 80s.
That's right. Well, hey, we had a what video was, I can't remember the video. Somebody just left a comment that said the young guy.
Yeah.
Video, or referring to me. So I guess I'm the young guy.
Yeah. He clarified,
you're the old guy.
The guy that didn't have the facial hair. So
you're the old wizened wizard here.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, the original for me was always a little bright. I always felt that there was some inconsistency between songs. Like when you listen to the original Holy Diver song, it seemed like that, it was obvious they knew that was going to be a single. So they produced that one, made that one sound a little bit better. Then you listen to, I can't remember what it is, like maybe Caught in the Middle or one of the songs came after it. And it just seemed like tonally it kind of changed. So this remix does a nice job of evening everything out across. I agree with you. It makes the guitars more, they're a little darker. It takes some of the high end off the guitar. It balances the levels out a little bit more. I think it's the counting thing. I wish they maybe just done it with like one song. Like it's pretty cool. Like before Gypsy, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, ball, da, 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 that's cool. They kind of do it for like before Holy Diver. I didn't like it, before Holy Diver, because I think that song just needs to start with that big chord. Yeah. But I thought it was pretty brave that they extended these outros out. And you make a good point, and I saw a lot of people pretty quick to react when it first came out with, what's the point? The original mix is perfect. The original album is perfect, and dumping on it like before they even heard it. And I think as long as the original is available, which in this box set it is, you get the original album remastered, you get the original album remixed. As long as the original is still available out there, why not give people this option? Here it is. Here's what it sounds like. There's some extra little playing and stuff like that on it. Why not do that? We're at a point where, who knows? Maybe this is going to be the next thing. Like we joke, like with Black Sabbath, how many times can they remaster Paranoid? It's been remastered like about, 18 different times, 25 different times. Well, maybe this is a new thing, where they're going to start going into people's back catalog and they're going to start giving us remixes of things. And it's not going to appeal to everybody. There's going to be a lot of people that just say, hey, my original version is fine. But for the hardcore fans like us, I find it interesting. There is that factor of when you've been hearing something a certain way for so long, 39 years at this point. Even when they put out the advanced songs before the whole thing was released, I was kind of on the fence and didn't really care for it. I was kind of like, I don't know about this. It sounded too much, that Joe Barresi, we haven't mentioned his name. He's the person who did the remix. Yeah. He has, I guess, worked with Tool and Queens of the Stone Age. And I saw Wendy Dio said something like trying to make the album sound more modern. And maybe that put something in my head. So when I first heard the advanced songs, I was kind of like, it kind of had that little bit of that 90s, like Tool, not a lot of high end on it, a little bit, I don't want to say muddy, but sort of, lacking some of the sparkling clarity. But the more I listened to it, the more I liked it, the more I appreciated it. I don't have a problem with it. Again, I look at this like, I was thinking of this in the world of classical music. Beethoven didn't go into a studio and record Symphony No. 5. So people have played Symphony No. 5 for, hundreds of years now. And you can buy hundreds of different versions of different orchestras playing Symphony No. 5. And so that in itself is like a remix of Symphony Number 5. You know, this version is maybe going to have the violins a little louder. This version is going to be a little bit slower, and you know what I mean. So you're, and I thought, you know, that's kind of an interesting thing with some of these bands, and I could embrace it like that as long as the original is still there. It's fun to hear it in a different light, and I'm okay with it. I'm a little in the previous video I made, I think putting it, you know, vinyl at $35.99 on Amazon, $40 at your mom and pop store is a little bit much. The box set is a little bit expensive, but I mean, what the heck, you know, if you've got these live shows, the live show is an FM broadcast. If you've got these things sitting around archived somewhere, put them out, you know, get them out there to the fans. We complain about this with Black Sabbath, that Black Sabbath doesn't do this type of thing. So I would say to people who don't want to, I had the same reaction. Don't mess with it. I've been listening to it like this for 39 years. Yes, I had issues with the original mix, but just leave it alone, you know. Yeah. And it took me a couple listens. So I would encourage people out there, give it a chance. Don't just give it one listen. You got to give it a couple listens, let it sink in a little bit. And I think that there's things to like there. I think that there's things to enjoy. It sort of made me see it in a little bit of different light. In fact, what I found myself, again, I'm just listening to it on streaming, and Apple Music has the original album and it has the remix. And there were times when I was listening to the remix, it's going, is that guitar part like in Shame on the Night? You know, there were like little things that Vinny was playing, Vivian Campbell was playing. And I was like, is that in the original? And I would jump back to the original and listen to, oh yeah, okay, it's there, but it's just kind of
not as audible.
Yeah, and I never really noticed it before. Yeah. So there was a lot of little things like, I never noticed those. There's that background harmony that Dio sings there. It's really jumping out here. I never noticed that Vivian Campbell did a little thing here right before that riff comes, you know, or whatever, you know. So yeah. I enjoyed it. I think that that's cool to be able to kind of hear something that you've heard, thousands of times in my life at this point, and to be able to hear it from a different perspective, see it in a different light. So
yeah, I mean, at this point, it's not going to diminish my impression of the album overall. It's just, you know, after 39 years, I mean, it's cool to hear. I mean, I think it's safe to, like, we know we're established in the way that we process this album, in the way that we've, you know, made it, internalized it. It's, you know, it's one of my all-time favorite albums, you know, along with, you know, the 80s Black Sabbath and the 80s Ozzy stuff. As far as the 80s metal goes, I mean, Holy Diver and Last in Line, they're of utmost importance. And having said that, I mean, I think it's safe at this point to kind of like introduce something that's a little different, just for kicks and giggles, so to speak. I mean, yeah. You know, it's not like it's going to diminish the overall impression or opinion of the album. I mean, I'm always gonna hear it in my head the way that I've been listening to it, you know, since 1983. So yeah, I mean, but other people, you know, they get into this gatekeeping attitude about things, and no, you shouldn't tamper with it. And I don't understand that, really. I don't think it does any harm. It would only do harm if they erased the original mix and master and replaced it. Then I would protest. Then I would say, no, don't do that. But
if they pulled a Sharon Osbourne like they did with Blizzarded Diary, replacing the original tracks, I would say that this version, that if a 12-year-old kid hears a Dio song for the first time and decides he wants to buy Holy Diver, never having heard it before in his life, and he just flips a coin and buys the remix, I think that's okay. It's good. It's not gonna like turn somebody off from, you know, it's not like the Blizzard and Diary situation. It's not like Twisted Sister re-recording Stay Hungry, calling it Still Hungry. You know what I mean? Where I would feel bad if somebody bought Blizzard of Oz and it didn't have Bob and Lee on it. You know, that's a crime. You know, but this is just, you know, the album from a different perspective. I think it's a personal choice. I think at this point, I can't really say there's any flaws in this new mix. It's not overly dynamically compressed. It's got a pretty good dynamic range to it. There
Yeah.
isn't anything crazy or bizarre going on. Like, oh man, they forgot to, there's a missing a verse in one song or something,
Right. No,
something
nothing.
nutty like that, so.
Yeah, it's not brick walled. It's not. But then we're getting into the mastering. The mastering is good. It's at a reasonable volume. It's not mastered loud, so you don't have any distortion. It's everything. There's a lot of clarity to it. So it's well mastered. The mix is going to be, it's a subjective call. Some people might like it more than the original. Some people might just be sort of like on the fence and kind of indifferent to it, and other people might hate it, but there it is. You decide, listen to it on, Amazon or Spotify or whatever your streaming subscription is, and decide if it's worth purchasing. And if it's not, well, no big deal. But it is kind of cool in a way that and you mentioned, kids checking it out, younger generation, maybe this will be their introduction to Holy Diver, and that's cool. I mean, it keeps Dio somewhat relevant. We don't want these records to just be archives. It's cool that they're reintroduced into the market, that a young kid can walk into a record store and see it on the wall, and buy it, the same as we did in 1983. I think that's pretty cool. It keeps the tradition moving along, and I'm all in favor of that. So I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely. Okay, you got any final thoughts on the remix, or have we said it all?
I think I said it all. I'm curious though if they're going to do a last in line, if they're going to move forward with these things. I mean,
they're probably sitting back and waiting to see how this sells and the reception to it. But yeah, I could see them, and I would hope that they would maybe at least the classic era, the first 3 or 4 records, if they could put them in a box form like this, if they've got outtakes. Now, some of these outtakes seem pretty interesting. Maybe when Darren or I or both of us get it or hear it at some point, we'll make a video commenting on that. There's Rainbow in the Dark with an alternate guitar solo. There's some interesting little things like that. So if they do that for all the albums, I mean, I would find that very fascinating. And knowing now, I feel safe now. Let's say it's Joe Barresi and they handle it the same way. I feel safe that, okay, it's not brick walled. It's not like some sort of bizarre, remix where they triggered the drums or something, like ZZ Top did with their CDs at one point, sampling the drums and inserting drum machines and nutty, crazy things like that. So I hope that they do go through with it, because like you said, it's fun. It keeps it relevant. It keeps us talking about it. It gives us something to look forward to. It gives us something to talk about. And I love these albums. So I've always got my original vinyl. I got my original CD. Bring it on. Give me some other versions. I'm all ears. I'm game to give anything a listen.
Yeah, and I'm always a sucker for anything Ozzy, Sabbath, Dio related. If they put it out, I'll buy it. Those record store day picture discs, I bought those. The Holy Diver and Last in Line, I bought both of those. I bought the Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules picture discs. I mean, I just love that stuff. Any reissue or remastered, I'm going to check it out. I might like it, maybe not, but I'm going to buy it. So yeah, keep them coming. But speaking of the picture discs, I didn't actually listen to those. I didn't crack the seal on those, but I think they were remastered, if I'm not mistaken. I don't like picture discs to listen to. I mean, they're cool to have, to hang up, display, but the sound quality is
noisy, and
they're always noisy, a lot of surface noise. But I think those were remastered. I wouldn't really welcome a remix of The Last in Line, because I think that it's great the way that it is.
Yeah.
And we did our podcast. We had nothing but good things to say about the production. So I really wouldn't see that there's a need for anybody to tamper with that. The remaster might be interesting. Maybe they can beef it up. They can, make the sonic quality a little bit better in the way of the mastering. I wouldn't mind hearing that, but it would be cool. Maybe they did some of these super deluxe box set Dios, maybe from Holy Diver, which I guess they sort of, you could say they kind of did with this, with the CD package. But maybe moving forward, they do The Last in Line, Sacred Heart, Dream Evil, however far they want to go. You know, it might be an interesting thing, primarily for maybe some of the like single replicas. You know, there was quite a few singles, 12-inch singles for Holy Diver and Last in Line. It'd be cool to include those.
Yeah.
Some live stuff. You know, I think that'd be a great thing to do. And you know, keep Dio, keep his music out there, keep it relevant. Now they're going to be pricey, so people are going to complain about that, but no one's forcing anybody to buy anything. If you have the money, or if you want to make that commitment, then there you go. But otherwise, you know, no one's forcing anybody to buy anything. But you know, if you're a fan of these records and something like, then they do put these super deluxe box sets or something out, then it's cool to have them out there. It's cool to have the option to buy if they're available. So.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you guys let us know out there. Have you heard the Holy Diver remix? Do you plan on listening to it or getting it? Like we said, it is up on the streaming services. You can check it out there. So let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. And we will see you at the next Sabbath Sunday.